one of the most important things you can do with your food plots is, you know, aside from planting the right food plot seed and planting the right food plot and how you plant it and all that kind of stuff, taking care of weeds, is really, once you get that down, we're coming to the edge of these food plots and making sure you have some type of edge habitat. Now, some people call it edge feathering. I see edge feathering programs like with the state sometimes, and it'll be cutting timber, and a lot of times that timber looks like that big giant pile behind me, where there's a lot of timber cut indiscriminately, and they'll call that edge feathering. So basically you have a food plot and then a wall of timber that's cut down. I like it to be true feathering, where it's just more of a soft edge. So I call it a soft edge cutting or edge cutting, something like that. But really what you're trying to do is, and we'll talk about what we've done right through here and why we've done it, how it's been cut. But what you're trying to do is create enough of an edge. You're getting sunlight down to the edge, create regeneration, create screening and cover so that does and fawns can bed as close to your food plot as possible. And that's a really critical concept for you to understand. It's where I talk about that layering of doe bedding, intermediate bucks, and then finally your mature bucks. Mature being all relative. That might be the oldest buck in your woods, might be 2 or 3 years old. Whatever it is, you want him back there in those does and fawns here. It just makes sense. If you don't have these does and fawns along this edge, you're not going to have them bedding back there. We were just at this bedding point that's about 125 yards straight as a crow flies, but you go down about 80 to 100 feet in elevation and then back up again. So by the time you get over to there, there's a lot of ground where a buck can actually bed, but he's not going to be there if you don't have this edging and does bedding over here. The does and fawns are going to be over there. And if you don't have bedding for him until you get 400 or 500 yards back on the property and way down the bottom, why is he even going to relate to this giant food source out here every single day? He's not going to. He has choices. Maybe he'll come here occasionally. But you want to get this layering movement as compact as possible. So when you're talking about edging for deer, I want this to actually be a bedding area edge where deer feel comfortable. If it's just solid logs and down timber like behind me, where we put the spoils from cleaning out part of this food plot last year, about 1.25 acres, then they don't want to bed here. They want something like this, where you have cuttings. We have clusters of cutting right here, but this is wide open for deer to go in and out of this food plot back here. Same with right up here, where you can see all the stumps. Deer can easily move down in between these cuttings. They can move over there too. So every 5-10 yards, even if you have a block of cutting like this, there's ways for deer to get in and out of here. So then they can bed at the back of these tops. And then what we do is, because we're getting all this sunlight to the plot, and you can see it. I mean, it's sunny. You can see my shadow right here. It's more midday, so we're getting midday sun right along this edge. Then we're going to expand out here about 10 to 12 feet. So really one spreader width on our Earthway Model 2750. We're going to spray Simazine on here this week. Now that the snow is finally gone here, you'll see it's not gone over there. There's still snow on the north facing slopes, 8, 10, 12 inches, and it's March 27th right now. This snow was all gone by March 20th last year. It's just crazy. We're about 3-4 weeks behind in this spring right now than we were last year. But we'll come out here with our northern switchgrass blend, the WHS Wildlife blends. We have our northern mix that's appropriate for our area, and I'm going to get the Simazine down because we had good weed control on this last year. I'll wait for spring green up. I'll wait for the weeds that are remaining to get 8, 10, 12 inches high, growing aggressively, nice day like today. And then I'll spray those with 2 quarts per acre of glyphosate and 1 pint per acre of 2,4-D. That'll start to produce an actual soft edge where we have switchgrass on the outside. Yes, we'll sacrifice a little bit of food plot space, but that's okay because I want this high quality edge. So as we move down this edge, you can see we have trees we've completely cut, like our aspen or popple. We're completely cutting those down. We have some, if they're very large trees, we're cutting down because we don't want to hinge cut those. We want them to die. We want them to produce that bush effect. So we have browse all the way along here, so deer can actually browse on hardwood regeneration along the food plot. They're browsers. They want to ultimately get to this quality feed, but they want to browse going back, they want to browse going there, and they want to browse back in their bedding areas here. So some of this has been hinge cut, and that'll keep it up depending on the species. A lot of hickory, even some oak. But again, we have a big opening for deer to get back and forth here, and then we have an opening for deer to go right down there. And then this opens up to another bedding area on the point that we've created right down there. So we've gone in a spot that is away from our hunter access, and we've created bedding area on the inside of this food plot right here. We have more to do over here. We still have to edge cut this entire perimeter right here. So it'll be a giant half circle of cutting. And again, that's accomplishing getting more sunlight to the food plot, but also creating that soft edge with switchgrass, hardwood regeneration, areas for deer to get in and out easily. That makes it a lot easier for you to get in. We have a redneck blind right over there, and you can just see it sitting above the horizon. It's actually on a 10-foot platform. It doesn't look like it because of the lay of the land, but we actually come in from behind that redneck, walk up there. We'll have that completely screened with our deer fence screening. We'll be able to come in behind it, not spook anything out here, come through a little valley. And so by having this edging right here, by having the deer close, we can still get into a blind, not spook them. And ultimately, browse line, soft edge, thermal protection from the winds that are going across here, like they're coming at my back right now. Going into this edge, deer will feel comfortable right here. Before it was just all open hardwoods right down into the edge. So those does were bedded 100, 150 yards away. By pulling those does up, we make space for bucks back here. We can utilize that bedding bench down there. We have beds all the way down the bottom. We have beds down the bottom over there. We have intermediate beds in between for young bucks or more does and fawns. But bottom line, it all starts on this edge. And again, going back to what I started to in the beginning, when you're creating a food plot, one of the most important things you can do, aside from, again, good seed to soil contact, amending your soil with a soil test, addressing lime, pH, use our plot start, plot boost, taking care of your crops, making sure you have the right seed for the right time and the conditions that your goals are related to. Aside from all that, make sure you have this edging, because again, that's that first step in creating doe and fawn bedding up close to the plot where they want to bed, and then getting those bucks back in the inner recesses of the property. And then finally, after we've talked about all this deer, I'm making it a point, because a lot of times for years I've been talking about whitetail strategy. That doesn't mean we don't create habitat improvements for all the other critters in the woods. And so I started to talk about that more, just so people realize really the complete picture. If you have the complete picture, we talk about the big four. We talk about turkey nesting habitat, grouse habitat, pheasant habitat, and rabbit habitat. You have rabbits, you have those 4 indicator species, then you're gonna have great whitetail habitats. When we're creating this edge right here, what are we doing? We're creating brush piles for rabbits. We're creating hardwood regeneration, aspen, popple regeneration for grouse, turkey nesting habitat with briars, brush here. And then when we have our switchgrass lines, we have pollinator lines on either side of this, then we're creating great pheasant habitat out here on this edge. So it's a complete picture for wildlife in this area. I hope that makes sense. We're enjoying doing this. We're getting a lot accomplished this year. I finally got some help. His name's Joel. He's been out here and helped me out. Very trusted source, professional cutter. And so between him and I, that's who cuts on the property now. Joel's cut 2 weekends and I've cut for 3 years. So I'm hoping he can help me out a little bit more. But bottom line is, we're getting a lot done this year, and it's focusing on a lot of wildlife species, but specifically in this concept, understand when it comes to creating the perfect food plot, there's a lot more to creating a perfect food plot than what you plant and how well it grows and how green it is. It really has a lot to do with the screening line, the edging, creating an actual soft edge that works gently back into your habitat. And then what we can do too, we get down to some of these tops that are cut and not growing, they're not hinged, like some of the aspen, some of the bigger oaks that we fell. Then we can actually go back in there and stab 4 or 5 white pines in each little cluster, have them grow up within the protection of those branches, and we can create a staggered edge that has everything, meaning grass, hardwood regeneration, bushels will crop up in here, also briars, and then those pines back in there. So we'll have it all just on this edge going around. And again, that creates room for a lot of wildlife habitat, but establishes the most important concept of food plotting when you're creating these, is creating that edge that you can establish that doe, fawn, intermediate buck, and mature buck bedding layers that are so critical to every small parcel, because you're trying to sandwich those in a very tight window so that you can maximize the space on your property and not waste acres because you haven't established this bedding, screening, and edging line first. Now, I don't know if you've checked out our main website lately, whitetailhabitatsolutions.com, but We've really had a lot going on, including hats, books, our web class, and certainly our new seed company, WHS Wildlife Blends. When you click on seed on our site, it'll take you right to our brand new site for the seed company. We have all 12 blends available. So check it all out though. I encourage you, I appreciate you checking it out. Whether you buy anything or not, really appreciate you visiting the site and seeing what's going on, and continue to watch because we have big things coming later this year.